Alrighty, here we go. My name is Eli. I'm going to be talking about the restoration of the 10 tribes of Israel. This is, I would say, it's part of the like Second Coming unit restoration kind of stuff. Much later, latest restoration, the very end. Honestly, it's probably one of the last things to be restored on this earth. But to do that, we're going to have to go back to the beginning. This is a more of an esoteric doctrine. It doesn't really alter us on a day-to-day life. It is doctrine, but it's a little bit unknown. We don't know much about it, and we won't, but we still need to know about it. It can inform us and teach us, but this is an esoteric doctrine. I'll try and point out the things on the rubric as we go through. I might have to go back, circle back to some of them, but here we go. All the way back in history, we all know Abraham and his son Isaac. This is their kind of Abraham got the Abrahamic covenant and all the blessings for his posterity. So the children of Abraham are blessed. So next, there's the son of Isaac and Rebekah, the two sons, I guess, Jacob and Esau, and we know the history there of Esau trading his birthright to Jacob. Jacob, who later becomes Israel, has 4 wives, really 2 wives and 2 concubines. Leah and Rachel were the wives, and Bilhah and Zilpah were his 2 concubines. So the way the birthright works is if it doesn't go to it goes to the first son of the first wife, and then next in line is the first son of the second wife. So Reuben lost his birthright because he got into Bilhah's room, and so the birthright was transferred from Reuben to Joseph. Joseph, even though he was the 11th of 12 sons, he got the birthright because he's the first son of Rachel, who was the second wife. So it prefers first son over second son of first wife. Anyway, so as the birthright, he got a double inheritance. He got the inheritance twice as much as his brothers. So that's why Joseph, the tribe of Joseph, we call him the tribe of Manasseh and Ephraim, because he got 2 birthrights and it was split between. So I'm explaining why the 12 tribes are not the same as the 12 sons. The other thing is the tribe of Levi, because they were kind of tasked with the priesthood and the temple work. The tribe of Levi was split up, and they had 1 city out of each of the other tribes, kind of states, I guess. So that leaves us with these 12 tribes: Asher, Dan, Ephraim, Gad, Issachar, Manasseh, Naphtali, Reuben, Simeon, Zebulun, Judah, and Benjamin. All right, so this is how you lose the 10 tribes. There's 1 kingdom, all 12 tribes. It split up and became 2 after the death of King Solomon. Judah and Benjamin in the southern kingdom of Judah, and then the kingdom 10 in the north, the northern kingdom. And Assyria came. The northern kingdom was wicked and the southern kingdom was righteous. And the Assyrians came and conquered the northern kingdom and the 10 tribes. And Assyria, when they conquer tribes, when they conquer countries, they have the tradition, I guess, the policy that they take the powerful and important and really like most of the population of the cities out and replace them with their own people, just kind of displacing people. That way they can't have power and they get mixed up and it dilutes the blood. And that became the kingdom of Assyria. And they later fell, and even the southern kingdom was taken captive by Babylon later. But within the kingdom of Assyria, it later became like there was the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire. There were all the empires we know after Christ and that kind of time, even all the way down to the Ottoman Empire. And these kind of we'll get to that later, but bled with Europe. So where did they go? Are they in Europe? Where did they gather? These people of the northern kingdoms. They share the same blood, and they would know each other if they gathered, but we don't know where they went. There's not much proof. So now this is where it gets interesting. Where are they? When were they coming back? What happened to these people? This is my quote from the Joseph Smith papers. This is from the Article of Faith, number 10. We believe in the literal gathering of Israel and in the restoration of the 10 tribes. That Zion, the New Jerusalem, will be built upon the American continent. That Christ will reign personally upon the earth, and that the earth will be renewed and receive its paradisical glory. So from this verse, a lot of us, at least myself as a child, you hear this and there's a certain significance with the 10 tribes that they're going to be restored, and that's a certain part of the second coming and exaltation of this world. The 10 tribes are a key part of it, as shown by this verse. So we'll get into where are they. There's some proof that they ended up in Europe. To me, I thought this sounded absurd, but then I realized, it's really not that far from Jerusalem. This is Assyria was up in here in Mesopotamia. That they ended up crossing here, this is through the Mediterranean Sea into present-day Italy, Greece, and places like that. Into Africa, again, across the Mediterranean, into Egypt, is that Cyrene? It makes sense how they ended up in Africa. In Asia, down here through Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, into India, that kind of part. And there's some evidence. There's some connection between Japanese and Hebrew, which there's really no history for. There's no reason that there should be common words between Japanese and Hebrew, but that's a little bit of evidence that perhaps the 10 tribes made it all the way out to Japan and settled Japan. Or kind of came up this way. They came north through Armenia, the Caucasus region, up into Russia. Or I don't know. There's a lot of just kind of people think they just maybe this happened, maybe that happened, but there's not a lot of proof or evidence of what happened to this group of people, this nationality, and where they're scattered and where they went. So north is one that I wanted to single out because that appears in the scriptures actually. And I skipped America. We know through the Book of Mormon that Lehi and his descendants populated America. They're part of the American Indians. So that kind of ties America in with the whole Jerusalem-based religion and Christianity. So Joseph Smith in the temple was receiving all kinds of revelations, and this is one of them from D&C 110. Moses appeared before us and committed unto us the keys of the gathering of Israel from the four parts of the earth, and the leading of the 10 tribes from the land of the north. Here, the way they say that the 10 tribes are separate from the tribes of Israel, gathering of Israel, and the 10 tribes specifically from the land of the north. Here's another quote. These are my two from DNC. And they who are in the north countries shall come into remembrance before the Lord, and their prophets shall hear his voice, and shall no longer stay themselves. And they shall smite the rocks, and ice shall flow down at their presence. So this sounds a little crazy. Maybe they're in the ice in the north. I'm not sure about that. A lot of conjecture. But they're in the north, and they'll come down and be reunited. This is in a section where it's talking about the second coming and the millennium. So we can draw from that this will happen in around the time of the millennium, that the 10 tribes will be restored, and they'll come join in Zion, like it said in the 10th article of faith. So this is my conclusion. These are my two takeaways and one kind of key point, whatever it was called. They're everywhere. Our blood goes back. We're talking all the way back to Mesopotamia, where the population of the world wasn't that great. And then the tribes being scattered like Abraham was promised, like the sands of the sea. So we all likely have the blood of parts of the 10 tribes in us, whether we're from Native American descent or European descent, Asian descent. There's some evidence and some conjecture, really, that the 10 tribes are everywhere. The population of the world has grown so much, and so much mixing between races, that likely we're all parts of the 10 tribes. And we know, my kind of theory is that we know through our patriarchal blessing that we belong to, most of us, the tribe of Ephraim or Manasseh. My assumption was that the tribe of Ephraim ended up in Europe, and a lot of us with European descent ended up as parts of the tribes of Ephraim because of that. And then we also know that they'll come from the north when the time has come. So we need to gather Israel today, Israel meaning the whole world. Gather Israel, I guess, meaning, like our prophet said recently, those who let God prevail in their lives. Gather those people together, and that's gathering Israel. But also the 10 tribes will be restored when the time is right, at the time of the millennium. So takeaway, we have to prepare and gather Israel. This has been an increasing topic. And the two quotes I use, here's my sources. I use two talks from our prophet, one from 2006. It's literally talking about gathering Israel, and the most recent one about let God prevail and what the word Israel means. And there's a little bit in there about gathering Israel and the 10 tribes. There's also, here's my two scholarly, it's a PBS article, but it's really just like a scholarly article. I think they might have made a TV episode out of it, but it's more scholarly than it sounds. And then there's a book called The 10 Lost Tribes, A World History, and I read a summary and kind of a scholarly book review, I guess. What do you call that? Yeah, summary and book review, kind of talking about each chapter. And it's interesting, all these parts about the 10 tribes all mention Mormonism in America, our church, and the tribes in America. It's kind of cool. One of the coolest things I learned is that there was a theory that the 10 tribes ended up in America, and it was like in I think 1700s, and it was kind of they tried to prove it, but they didn't have any evidence, and then it was forgotten. And then Joseph Smith comes along and writes the Book of Mormon, translates the Book of Mormon, and then the theory's back, and it's not just a theory. He got it by revelation, but they had it just by conjecture, which is kind of cool, kind of affirming that people had thought of it before. It wasn't like a new idea, but they dismissed it, but then Joseph Smith restored it, and it was truth. And that's what I got. Thank you. It's a bit long, but